"Darling, your mom changed the password. I can't use her card anymore." Those words cut through the quiet of my living room like a blade. My daughter-in-law's voice, sharp and furious, echoed in my ears. In that moment, I felt the walls of my own home close in on me. I had spent my life working, saving, giving everything to my son, and now, here I was 71 years old being treated like a thief in my own house. I wanted to disappear, but instead I sat there, frozen, as the argument grew louder. What they didn't know was that I had already begun to keep a secret that would soon change everything. Friends, I want you to stay with me until the end of this story, because what happened after that night is something no parent should ever face, and yet, many of us do. When Clara shouted about the password, my heart didn't just ache for that moment. It ached for all the years that had come before it. You see, I wasn't born into wealth or comfort. Everything I have today, every dollar in my account, every brick of the house I sit in it was earned the hard way. I grew up in a small town where dreams felt too big for the size of our streets. I married young, and when Andrew was still little, his father passed away. Suddenly it was just me and that boy against the world. People told me to remarry, to find a man who could take care of us. But I couldn't. My heart was buried with my husband, and all I could think about was how to raise Andrew right. I took whatever jobs I could. During the day, I worked as a seamstress in a dusty old shop, squinting under dim lights, stitching until my fingers were raw. At night, I cleaned offices' empty hallways echoing with my footsteps, the smell of bleach sharp in the air. On weekends, I sold pies at the local farmer's market. I still remember standing there in the cold, my hands red from the wind, calling out to strangers with a smile, "Homemade apple pie, $2 a slice." It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every penny went toward Andrew, his school shoes, his books, the field trips I never wanted him to miss. I skipped meals so he could eat better. I patched up my old winter coat year after year while he grew into new jackets. I told myself it was worth it because one day he would stand tall and he would remember who stood behind him. And when Andrew finally graduated from college, I thought my heart would burst with pride. I clapped until my hands stung, tears rolling down my face as he walked across that stage. In that moment, I believed it had all been worth it, the nights I went to bed with aching bones, the years I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. I thought, he'll never forget this. He'll always know what his mama gave up for him. But life doesn't always reward sacrifice the way we think it will. After Andrew married Clara, things began to shift. At first, it was small. They'd ask for a little help, just a few $100s for bills or for furniture for their apartment. I didn't mind. A mother gives without keeping count. But over time, the requests grew. Vacations they couldn't afford. A new car when the old one was still running. And when I hesitated, Clara would put her hand on mine and say, "We just want you to feel included, Mom. We want you to be part of our life." Sweet words, but behind them was always a price tag. Friends, I wonder, have you ever poured your entire life into someone only to feel like they see you as a bank account instead of a parent? If you've ever felt that sting, please press like so I know I'm not alone. And if stories like mine touch you, please subscribe, because there are many more of us who need to be heard. I held on, telling myself maybe it was just a phase. But deep down, I began to notice things. Clara controlling the checkbook. Andrew looking away when she spoke sharply to me. The little signs that my sacrifices weren't being honored, they were being exploited. It hurt in a way I can't fully explain. To realize that the boy I raised with such love now allowed his wife to treat me like an obstacle, not a blessing. Still, I stayed quiet, because that's what mothers do. We swallow the pain, hoping love will fix what pride and greed have broken. But that night when Clara screamed about the password, that was the crack that split open years of silence. And soon, the truth of their intentions would come to light in a way I never expected. "Mom, you don't have to worry about money anymore," Clara would say, her voice soft, almost sweet. "You've worked hard your whole life. Let us handle things from here." At first, it sounded like kindness. What mother wouldn't want her son and his wife to step in and help? But there was something in her eyes, a flicker too quick to catch if you weren't looking close. I told myself not to doubt her. After all, she was family now. But soon I noticed how her words and her actions didn't quite match. She'd take my debit card just to pick up groceries and come back with shopping bags full of clothes with tags still swinging. She'd promised she'd pay me back for a little online order, and then weeks would pass, no word, no repayment. And Andrew, my Andrew, he would just shrug. "It's fine, Mom," he'd say, avoiding my eyes. "Clara's just better with money than we are. She's keeping everything organized." But deep down, I could see it. He wasn't blind. He just didn't want to fight with her. And so he let her turn me into what I swore I would never be, a machine that spat out cash every time she pressed the button. It was subtle at first. A bill here, a loan there. But over time, it grew bolder. They started using my card without asking, slipping into my account as if it were their own. I would sit down at my old wooden kitchen table, spread out the statements, and feel my chest tighten as I tried to understand charges I hadn't made. A luxury resort, designer handbags, payments to places I had never even heard of. One afternoon, I found Clara in the living room, flipping through a glossy furniture catalog. "This sofa would look perfect in our place," she said, circling something with a pen. "Our place?" I asked carefully. "How will you afford that?" She smiled without shame. "Oh, don't worry, we'll put it on your card. You'll hardly notice." Her words sliced through me. Not even a question. Not even the pretense of asking. It was just assumed. My hard work, my savings, my sacrifices, they were simply theirs for the taking. And Andrew, sitting right there, said nothing. He leaned back, rubbed the back of his neck, and looked at the floor. That silence hurt more than Clara's arrogance ever could. Have you ever felt that kind of betrayal, friends? Not from strangers, but from the very people you carried, fed, and sacrificed everything for? It cuts deeper than any knife, because it comes from your own flesh and blood. I started to feel like a prisoner in my own home. If I bought something small for myself, a new pair of shoes, or even a birthday gift for my neighbor, they would question me. "Do you really need that, Mom? Shouldn't you be saving for emergencies?" Yet somehow, their emergencies always required fine dining, spa visits, or nights out with friends. One evening, I overheard Clara talking on the phone. Her voice was low, sharp. "Don't worry. Once we sort things out with his mom, we'll be fine. She has more than enough. She won't even notice." I stood frozen in the hallway, the sound of her words burning into my ears. Once we sort things out with his mom, I was no longer a person in her eyes. I was an obstacle, a resource, a wallet with a heartbeat. From that night on, I stopped sleeping well. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me, wondering where I had gone wrong. Had I loved too much? Given too freely? Or was this just the way of the world now that once parents grow old, their children see them as burdens or worse, as tools? But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart, it changes you. It wakes you up. And though I still stayed quiet for a while, something inside me was shifting. I wasn't ready yet, but soon I would stop being silent. Because love is powerful, but survival is stronger. And little did I know, the night Clara screamed about the password was only the beginning. What came next would expose their true intentions in a way none of us could hide from. The day it all came to light was supposed to be a celebration. Clara had planned a family gathering at my house, inviting cousins, uncles, and even some neighbors. The dining table was heavy with dishes, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans dripping with butter. Laughter floated through the air, glasses clinked, children chased each other through the hall. I sat at the head of the table, smiling politely, though inside my chest felt heavy. I had been uneasy for weeks, ever since I overheard Clara's phone call. I didn't know exactly what they were planning, but I could feel it, something big, something dangerous. After dinner, people drifted into the living room. Some sat with coffee, others with dessert plates balanced on their laps. My grandson Lucas, now 20 and studying computer science, picked up his father's iPad from the side table. Andrew had left it there carelessly, maybe after showing photos earlier. "Dad," Lucas called, his voice casual, "do you want me to close these emails? They're still open." Andrew's face drained of color. "No, put that down," he said too quickly, lunging forward. But it was too late. Lucas frowned and started reading, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the chatter of the room. "Regarding the property transfer, once Evelyn signs the papers, we'll be able to put the house in both our names. Don't worry, she won't even realize what she's agreed to. Just keep her calm, and I'll handle the bank." The room fell silent. Forks froze midair. Conversations died instantly. Every eye turned toward me, then to Andrew, then to Clara. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands trembled in my lap, but I forced myself to stay upright. "What is that?" I asked, my voice sharp, louder than I'd meant. Andrew stammered, "It's nothing, Mom. Just some paperwork we were considering." "Nothing?" Lucas snapped back. "Dad, it says right here you're trying to take Grandma's house without telling her. You were going to trick her into signing it over." Clara's face twisted with anger, but not at the lie being exposed, at the fact that she had been caught. "Lucas, that's private. You had no right to read that out loud." Lucas stood taller, his young face flushed with heat. "Private? You were stealing from her? How could you?" I looked at my son, my Andrew, the boy I once rocked to sleep, the child I worked 3 jobs to raise, and he couldn't even meet my eyes. He just stared at the floor, shoulders hunched, silent. In that silence, something inside me broke. The weight of years of sacrifice, the humiliation of being treated like a burden, the betrayal of blood, it all surged through me at once. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "So this is what I mean to you? A house? A bank account? Not a mother, just property to be transferred?" My voice shook, but I didn't care. Andrew whispered, "Mom, please." "Please what?" I snapped. "Please let you rob me quietly? Please pretend I don't see what you've become?" The guests shifted uncomfortably, but no one left. Some shook their heads, others whispered to each other. Clara crossed her arms, her face red with fury. "You don't understand. We were only trying to secure our future." "By destroying mine?" I asked, my voice like ice. "Friends, let me ask you something. If you were sitting there, if your own child had plotted behind your back to take your home, would you forgive them? Yes or no? Please, tell me down in the comments. I truly want to know." The room buzzed with unease. Lucas stepped closer to me, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Grandma, you don't have to let them do this. You don't have to be quiet anymore." I looked at him, at the fire in his young eyes, and for the first time in years I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Clara muttered something under her breath, storming toward the door. Andrew followed, his head low, not daring to look back. The party ended not with laughter, but with whispers and heavy footsteps fading into the night. I stood in the middle of my living room, the half-eaten cake still on the table, the coffee cups cooling, and I knew one thing: the fight was no longer hidden. It was out in the open now, and I would not back down. Because once a secret is revealed, it cannot be taken back. And once a mother decides she's had enough, there is no silence strong enough to hold her down again. And that night, as I cleared the plates with Lucas by my side, I realized I was ready for the next step. I was ready to say the word I had swallowed for too long: no. The night after the gathering, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Andrew's face downcast, ashamed, yet still silent. He had chosen his wife's scheme over his mother's trust. No matter how I turned it in my mind, the betrayal cut deeper with every thought. By morning, I knew one thing: I couldn't stay quiet any longer. For 71 years, I had lived as a woman who gave, who sacrificed, who swallowed her pain. But if I stayed silent now, I would lose everything, not just the house, but my dignity, my very self. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had once helped Andrew with his homework, spreading out crayons and spelling sheets. Now it was covered in bills, bank letters, and the iPad Lucas had handed back to me after uncovering the emails. My hands shook as I sifted through the papers, but not from fear, from resolve. That afternoon, I called my old friend Margaret. She had known me since I was 20, back when life still felt wide open. She listened quietly as I poured everything out: Clara's shopping, Andrew's silence, the emails about the house. When I finished, my voice cracked. "Margaret, I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight them." Her reply was steady, like the ticking of a clock. "Evelyn, you've been strong your whole life. You just forgot it for a while. It's time to remember." Her words steadied me. And then Lucas arrived, his young face serious but full of energy. "Grandma," he said, setting his backpack on the floor, "we can't let this slide. I'll go with you, wherever you need to go." So the very next morning, we walked into the office of Mr. Benson, a lawyer recommended by Margaret. The waiting room smelled faintly of coffee and leather, and the secretary greeted us with a kind smile. I clutched my purse tight, my heart pounding, but Lucas sat tall beside me, his presence a silent reassurance. Mr. Benson was a gray-haired man with kind but sharp eyes. He listened intently as I laid everything out, his pen scratching across a yellow legal pad. When I faltered, Lucas filled in the gaps, describing the emails he had found. When I finished, Mr. Benson leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Mrs. Walker," he said, using my last name with respect, "you are not powerless. The law is on your side. What they attempted was fraud. We can file for protection of your assets, and if they've already taken money, we can pursue restitution." The word sounded heavy, serious. Restitution. For once, it wasn't me giving. Me sacrificing it was about taking back what was mine. I swallowed hard. "But they're my family," I whispered. He met my eyes. "And you are a person, not just their mother. You have rights, you have worth. And if they loved you, truly loved you, they would honor that." Tears blurred my vision. I nodded. "Then let's do it." Leaving that office, the air felt different, lighter, sharper. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking with my head bowed. I walked with purpose, with Lucas at my side and Margaret waiting at home to hear the news. The days that followed were not easy. Papers to sign, documents to gather, court dates to prepare for. Every step reminded me how far things had fallen between me and Andrew. I saw him once at the grocery store, standing by the fruit aisle. For a moment, I thought he might come to me, apologize, ask for forgiveness, but Clara tugged at his sleeve, and he turned away. It hurt. Oh, it hurt more than I can say, but pain wasn't enough to stop me anymore. I had already given too much of my life to silence. One evening, as Lucas helped me file receipts, I caught his hand and squeezed it. "Thank you, dear, for standing up when I couldn't." He smiled shyly. "You're the one standing up now, Grandma. I'm just here to back you up." Those words settled deep inside me. I wasn't just a victim. I wasn't just a tired old woman waiting for life to finish. I was Evelyn Walker, and I was finally saying no. But as strong as I felt, I also knew the hardest part was still ahead. Because once you stand up, the ones who tried to push you down don't just give up, they push back. And I had to be ready for the storm that was coming. The day the court finalized the papers, I stepped into the sunlight with Lucas at my side. The judge's words echoed in my mind: my house, my accounts, my freedom, they were safe. For weeks I had lived under fear, and now it finally lifted. But freedom carried its own sorrow. Andrew and Clara left the courthouse without a word. Clara walked fast, her heels striking the floor like gunshots. Andrew followed, shoulders bent, eyes fixed on the ground. I waited for him to turn, to look at me the way he once did. He never did. That silence cut deeper than anything else. That evening, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the garden was blooming again, thanks to Lucas's careful work. Tulips, marigolds, herbs swayed gently in the breeze. For the first time in years, peace visited my heart. Life couldn't return to what it had been. I had lost my son, at least the son I thought I knew, but in losing him, I found other things, small rhythms, simple joys, pieces of myself I thought were gone. Lucas stayed with me, studying at the same table where Andrew once scribbled spelling words. Some nights I watched him bent over his books and whispered a quiet thank you to life itself. Margaret visited often, bringing her pies and the kind of laughter only old friends can share. She pushed me to join the Senior Center's book club. At first I hesitated, unsure if I belonged. But Thursdays soon became my favorite day. We gathered with coffee, talked about novels, and shared our own stories. I realized then I wasn't the only one scarred by family. We all carried burdens, but together they felt lighter. One evening, Lucas asked gently, "Grandma, do you regret standing up to them?" I thought long before answering. "I regret that it came to this," I admitted. "But I don't regret finding my voice. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes saying no is the only way to keep your soul alive." Just as I spoke those words, the doorbell rang. On the mat was an envelope, my name written in Andrew's familiar hand. My heart pounded as I tore it open. Inside was a single page, the ink blurred as though tears had fallen on it. "Mom," it read. "I'm sorry. Clara pushed me into things I knew were wrong. She said if I refused, she'd leave and take my child away. I was weak. I don't ask forgiveness. I only hope someday you'll understand why I stayed silent." My hands shook as I held the letter. Tears fell down my cheeks. The pain was still there, sharp and raw. His words didn't erase what had happened, but they reminded me that betrayal often comes tangled in fear, weakness, and love gone wrong. Friends, I want to ask you, if your child left you such a letter, would you forgive them? Yes or no? Share your heart with me in the comments. If this story touched you, please press like so I know I'm not alone. If not, type the number 6. I welcome your truth, whatever it is. And don't forget to subscribe so we can share more stories of parents, children, heartbreak, and hope. Tonight, as I sit in my living room with the lamp casting its soft glow, I know life is not what it was, but I also know it isn't over. I am 71 years old, still here, still learning, still opening my heart to tomorrow. And that, dear friends, is enough.